Hi, my name is Emily Dewing. Today is November 25th, 2019, and today I'm going to be talking about the integumentary system. These are the notes that I will be using today. The integumentary system is going to be the skin on your body. It's going to have the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous layer, the hypodermis. The epidermis is going to be composed of 4 to 5 layers. Thick skin is going to have 5 layers, and thin skin is going to have 4 layers. But before we get into that, I'm going to talk about the functions. So the integumentary system, mainly for protection, it's going to have a lot of keratinized dead cells on top to protect you from abrasion. It's going to take part in thermal regulation, so it's going to have like vasoconstriction and vasodilation inside of that, so to keep your temperature in homeostasis. It's going to be in charge of like UV protection from like melanocytes are going to protect you from UV radiation. And then it also just be sensory reception from like the Pacinian corpuscles and like Meissner corpuscles. So getting into the epidermis is going to have 4 to 5 layers. Thick skin is going to be on your hands and feet. That's going to have 5 layers, with the extra layer being the stratum lucidum, right before the stratum corneum. In the epidermis of your entire body, it's going to have these 4 layers. So the bottom layer is going to be the stratum basale, which is going to be that's where mitosis is going to take place. So there's a lot of like risk of skin cancer in there because the UV radiation can cause mutations in DNA. And then so there's also going to be keratinocytes, which produces keratin, which protects your skin, and there's also going to be a lot of melanocytes, which is where melanin is produced, which is a protein that is it's in part of the pigment of your skin, and it does that by using the UV light. So from then on, we're going to go up to the stratum spinosum, which is going to have some spindle-looking cells. They're like little tiny ones, and then they're going to be that's where the majority of your like tight junctions are going to be formed, and they don't let any water through. And then there's also going to be some desmosomes there, which allow your skin to stretch. After that layer, you're going to go into the stratum granulosum, which is 3 to 5 layers of keratinocytes, and that's where keratin is going to be formed, and it's going to go into cells there, and then it's going to go onto the top layer later. But we'll talk about that later. And so yeah, that's where that happens. And when you're looking under a microscope, those will be really obvious because the keratin is going to look like granule, and so that's why it's granulosum. It looks granular. So then after that, for thick skin, that's where the stratum lucidum would be, but we're not worried about that. So we're going to go into the stratum corneum, which is where there's about 20 to 30 layers of keratinized dead cells, which is where the keratin from the keratinocytes is going to go into those cells. There's going to be a layer of dead skin to protect the rest of the skin from outside things, and those cells are going to be like protecting from abrasion and everything, and so it's going to be waterproof and hydrophobic. And then also it's going to form friction ridges, which is like your fingerprints, and so it can help you like grip things. So yeah, that's going to be all the main layers of the epidermis. And now going on the dermis. The dermis is going to be made of 2 layers. It's going to have the papillary layer, and then it's going to have the reticular layer. The reticular layer is much bigger than the papillary layer. The papillary layer is where we're going to start. It's the layer right below the epidermis, very small. That one's going to have the Meissner corpuscles inside. And Meissner corpuscles are the ones that are sensitive to light touch, so like very light feelings. That's that one, which makes sense because it's closer to the surface of the skin. And then it's also going to have free nerve endings, and it starts in that layer, and they're going to go up into the epidermis also as well. And then the dermal papilla is going to be like the bumps on top of the dermis that connect it with the epidermis. So they're going to be like little things that connect. After that, there's going to be the reticular layer, which is below the dermal or the papillary layer. That's going to be like the main chunk of it. So that's going to include like sweat glands. It's going to include Pacinian corpuscles, which are the ones that like if you got hit really hard, like those would feel that, and they would feel like deep sense and vibrations, and then it would also have like sweat glands. Yeah, that's where it would put oils out. It has like sebaceous glands in there. It would also have like blood vessels, which is where the vasoconstriction and dilation comes from. So yeah, that's most of that for the reticular layer, and then after that, it's just the hypodermis or the subcutaneous layer, which is where the adipose tissue is or where fat tissue is, and that just stores nutrients and energy for later. Yeah, and then just if there was ever like my profession, I want to go into being a nurse practitioner, and say I was looking at somebody with skin cancer, it could form in a lot of different ways, maybe a regular mole or patch of weird skin. That would form from the melanocytes in the stratum basale. In the UV radiation, say they weren't wearing sunscreen or something, it could have ruined the DNA synthesis and it could have mutated. And so, yeah, that's what I would be looking for. Thank you very much. And then also, just one more look. This is the paper. Come back. Thank you very much.